What is up, everyone? Hope you're all good. Now, we are back today with my dream tank, and it has been doing fairly well, but I have made a couple of mistakes, or errors. I suppose they're both the same thing. But by the end of this video, we will have fish. The first fish in the dream tank, and I am so excited. We have got an absolute ton of cool classic aquarium fish ready to go in here, and they've all finished quarantine. So let's get on with going through the mistakes and giving it a bit of a clean, get this bit of equipment on there that I want it to help it out, and then we can do the cool bit of getting some fish finally in this tank. Now, when I say we made mistakes, it's not mega mistakes. It's more sort of, well, I was busy. I went away to different things, and I've been here, there, and everywhere working on different projects, and this tank was just growing, so I just let it grow. And in the first few weeks, we did get a lot of tannins from that bogwood. It did release a fair amount. So we ended up doing some big water changes, and that was fairly simple. There was just plants in there. It was drain it out, fill it up, get rid of the tannins, and we were back onto, well, the water as you see it here, fairly clear. After that, we started getting some algae, which you'll probably be able to see on the rocks and on the wood. And again, wasn't a major issue. It wasn't getting to sort of plague proportions, so I just let it be. And to be fair, something dawned on me with the algae. A lot of people used to come in and they would buy a fish tank and they'd set it up, and then they might not buy fish for several weeks or months. And I know that sounds mad to some of us because you're like, I need to get fish in there. But people do. They buy a tank, they set it up, and then they leave it. Or they might not be able to afford to get that many algae eaters in there. It's not a cheap hobby, especially when you're looking at this sort of scale. So I thought, do you know what? We'll just leave it. Not all of us can afford to go out and buy 30 Otocinclus and bang them in and make the tank look clean. Let's leave this alone and let's see what it does and what it grows. And to be honest, with changing the lighting a little bit and just lowering down the time of the lighting and actually sort of just manually removing it, we have kept the algae, well, fairly well clear, to be honest with you. Now, we have made some additions in the way of half a dozen amano shrimps, which can't currently see, and half a dozen cherry shrimps, which they're not even going to touch a tank of this size, but they were in other aquariums that I was shutting down. I thought, you know what, this is a perfect home for them. Let's get them in there. So they've been doing a little bit of work. The other thing that I put in here was some ram's horn snails, the nice little red ones that I've got in other aquariums around the house. And they were doing well, as starting to eat the algae, and they were breeding a little bit. We did get a few snails from the plants. So the whole sort of ecosystem was starting to build up really, really nicely. And they were starting to devour the algae, which, you know, brilliant. And then I realised where the second mistake, and this was sort of my mistake, and this is where I realised what was going on and what was happening. One day I came down and there was tons of leaves on the surface of the water. You might still actually be able to see some floating on the surface now that are freshly chewed. And I couldn't work out what was going on. That plant over in the right-hand corner there, that was probably double the height. The nice crypt that's here with the red lines and the red stripes, I think it's spiralis, that was also way higher than it is now. And the leaves from that were all floating on the surface. Actually, the Aponogeton as well had several leaves that had been chewed off. And I could not work out what had happened. And then it dawned on me, because I saw one of them. I had inadvertently put in some Colombian ram's horn babies. Now, I bought some Colombian ram's horns. They're a much bigger ram's horn from a shop that I'd visited a long time ago, actually. And I'd just had them in quarantine, and I didn't really think anything of it. And they'd been laying eggs, and I'd had a few babies, and it was fine. But they were in a tank with much harder leaved plants, anubiases and java ferns. The babies went in here, and they started devouring everything. You can still see damage on the leaves now. So this tank is almost in a state of recovery right now. I left it a few weeks to let it settle and come back to life a little bit, but this is not the best start that you could have had to an aquarium, sort of. It's not that bad. It could be way, way worse. But I did think it was best, and probably makes everyone feel a lot better if I was transparent and showed you that actually a lot of these issues happen, and it's no good just hiding them and giving the tank loads of big water changes. I could have scrubbed everything down. I could have trimmed off all the bad leaves. I could have banged in a CO2 system in here to get all the plants growing, and none of you would have ever been the wiser. But it's not about that. It's about showing that seasoned aquarists make mistakes as well. I don't know if it's my mistake. I accidentally put them in. So with story time over, hopefully that fills you all in on what has happened with this tank over the last few weeks and months. Like I say, it doesn't look its best, but it's definitely on the road to recovery after those snails absolutely demolished it. I really didn't think they would be that bad. But anyway, if you've got any questions or want any more info on what has happened, drop them down in the comments and I'll try and reply and let you know. But I think that covers everything. But first job, I want to get this thing onto the tank, which is an Awazi crystal skim. Now, I have used these skimmers for ages. It was actually, I think, one of the first product reviews I'd done on the channel. And I was going to put a 600 on here, but I was using my 600 in my tank in the garage, and then my festive cichlids decided to lay eggs on the front of it. So rather than upsetting them, I thought, you know what, we'll just stick the smaller one in here for the minute. It will still do a decent job. They're actually really powerful for what they are, but the 600 model would probably be better for a tank of this size. Now, as I say, I do really like using these skimmers because there's a few different ways you can actually run the crystal skim. You see this sort of turrety bit here? You can actually remove the top piece of this, so you can suck in all of the sort of bigger waste if you want to, and you can also remove this grill and just have the turrety piece sat on. Obviously, if you've got small fish, that's not ideal because they will get stuck in there, or shrimp or something like that. So I always run it, to be fair, with the grill on just to make sure. But there's loads of different ways that you can use these skimmers, and when I done the review years and years ago, I got so excited by the pair of tweezers that you get with this. All it is to get the foam out in the middle, but I do like a free pair of tweezers. Now you can sort of see the oily slick that's going over the surface, so by adding this skimmer, that is actually going to remove any of that. And if I ever get my most hated plant, duckweed, in here, the skimmer will help remove that as well. But really, it is just this oily film that I want to be working on. And I'm going to place the skimmer somewhere back there because the inlet to the filter's down there, and this skimmer has an outlet on the bottom, so it will suck water from the surface, jet it down straight into the external filter, which should work a treat. Now, if you remember from episode 1, I actually had this spray bar across this end here, and that was blowing down through the tank really nicely, and I thought that was the problem with the leaves falling off. I actually thought at one point that the spray bar was too powerful and it was essentially blasting all the leaves off of my plants, but turned out to be those stupid Colombian ramshorn snails. Actually, to be fair, if you want to see, I'm going to do a tank for those Colombian ramshorns. I think I'm just going to, I don't know, set up their own aquarium, but they're even eating the Anubias and Java fern in my black ghost knifefish tank now, so yeah, I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with them. Now, the Highline aquariums have these dry weir boxes where you can drop all your plugs down through, and that goes straight down into the cabinet, which means that then all your plugs and cables don't have to come outside, they just sneak down inside. Now, this little skimmer, I'm hoping to just sit on the front of the weir box and let it do its thing. That's a bit too deep, that needs to come up a bit. Perfect. Right, there's my lid gone. That can go back on there. And then I just need to plug it in and away we go. So in theory, we should just be able to plug that one in, and that will start getting rid of all of that surface fat. You can already see it taking leaves and bits of debris in. So give it maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, and that will get rid of all of our surface scum and chuck it right down into the filter inlet. So that's that job done. Now, I think, to be honest, before putting the fish in there, I think we could do with a little water change. Nothing major, just a quick gravel vac. Maybe remove a touch of that algae, not too much, but a touch of it, because the first group of fish we've got going in a minute are, I wouldn't say some rarer algae eaters, but some algae eaters that I don't often see in shops, and some more common ones as well, actually, saying that. So they're going to be going in here, and I don't want to remove too much food, but certainly the snail and shrimp poop that's along the front here does need a quick clean up. Now, obviously, before giving this tank a proper gravel clean, we're going to give it a scrape and a wipe just to make sure there's no algae on the glass, because, well, the last thing you want to do is do a water change and find that there is residual algae everywhere, because, well, to be honest, that's really annoying, because then you make your tank dirty. You do a nice water change on it, and then you make your tank all really gross. But let's skip forward to the part that the gravel cleaner is happening, because you don't need to see me clean a tank really, do you? So with the algae all wiped down, we just need to get rid of all of the shrimp and snail poo, which we will do with my trusty gravel cleaner. So it's actually surprising how many people don't know how to use a gravel cleaner, to be honest, but the easiest way is to shake it a few times and then you can start siphoning all the muck out. Now obviously I do have fine sand in here and it will take some of it up, but I can scoop that back out of the bucket and chuck it back in the tank once I've rinsed it through, because, well, it's better to remove some of this algae than leave it in there, even if I do lose a bit of my sand. Just do a tiny bit up this end as well. Obviously I've been doing loads of water changes on this tank and testing the water, so this is just a sort of, well, precautionary, oh, there's my scraper, precautionary water change and algae clean, because I want these guys to go in here and do a job and have enough food, but I do want their house to be clean at least a little bit. So we'll top it back up with a little bit of dechlorinated fresh water with a capful, and let's get some good bacteria in there as well. That will then, I just got that all over my fingers. That will then make that water safe and ready to go, and then we can head to the garage to get our fish in. Now I have taken the recommendations for fish from a lot of you in the comments sections, to be honest. So yeah, there's a few fan favourites, there's a few different bits and pieces. Yeah, hopefully by the end of this video, we'll have our algae eaters in. We'll then leave it a little bit of time, and then we'll get our tetras in. But right, let's head to the quarantine tank, and then, oh, no, I need a little bit more water in there. I'll take you to the quarantine tank, I'll fill this up with water now. So this is one of my quarantine tanks. This is 125 litres, and it's where we've been putting the majority of the fish that are going to go over into the Highline at 600 soon. Now today I want to get the catfish in here because we've got a few different species of catfish and bits and pieces like that, so they're going to be the first ones to go in there. But I thought it was worth raising that. Well, when I was at an event the other day, it was actually the Practical Fish Keeping on the Road event down in Cornwall, someone asked me and said, well, what's the point of quarantining? Is there any need for me to do it? If I'm buying a group of 6 fish from the shop, should I do it? And the answer is, yeah, probably. If you know the quality of your fish or the fish you're buying, and you know the shop and the shop treat and quarantine and make sure everything's okay, then you should be all right. But there is always an element of risk. You've just got to decide how much risk you want to take. If I was to go and buy all of these fish from the shop today, mix them all up into one tank, I could be fairly sure that someone isn't going to get on in there. It's not definite, but I could be fairly sure if I was to bang all 100 fish into that tank, one of the species is probably going to have an issue. And that's just because of the numbers. There is, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 different species in here, maybe more. And what you've got to think of is all of those species have probably come from different sources. Even though you're buying them from the same fish shop, Tank A might be from Indonesia, Tank B might be from Brazil, who knows? Like, you can ask, but each of those suppliers will have different things that the fish are immune to and have come into contact with. Very similar to you and me. If we go into contact with someone that's had a different strain of cold, then we can catch it if we haven't already built up an immunity to it. And it's the same with all of these. If fish A has got a parasite infection that they've caught and they've got used to, and they're now pretty much immune to it, or they're used to it. And then fish B, or 2, I don't know what I said, the other fish has got a bacterial infection. And then all of a sudden you put all of that into the tank and someone is possibly going to get sick. So that is the whole point of quarantine. That is why we've been quarantining these fish in here, because, well, the fish come first. I don't want any problems, and even if it is a little bit of risk, I would rather not take that risk. So yeah, that's why we've done it. That's why we've been adding fish to this tank over the last few weeks, watching each species that has gone in there, making sure each fish has had an appropriate treatment if it's needed to. And now months on, I think it's months on, we're now here and ready to put all these fish in together. Now the next fish that go in there will be going in here first, and then you'll get that video later on, so they'll be quarantined in here. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. It's just a risk, and it depends on how much risk you want to take. Most of the time, you're probably going to be fine, but once in a while, it could cause you no end of problems. Now, I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing of me catching all of the fish out of here, but I was just going to show you. So this here, sat on this leaf if the camera wants to focus, is a little Otocinclus. Just behind it, coming forward there, that little silvery fish, that's a fishnet flying fox. Both of those are really good algae eaters, but different types of algae. Your ottos will be taking your sort of surface algae off, and the fishnets are really good for like more hairy sort of algae. And this tank is big, so we've got space for them. We have also got a group of Similis corydoras that you can see back there. So there's a group of 6 or 8 of them, I believe, in here. Now, where is my favourite algae eater that's in here? Oh, there's one just here, look. That, and you'll be able to see it when it goes into the tank, that is a giant otto. So they are, you know, quite long compared to your little otto on that leaf, but they are going to be really cool. I've only got a group of 3 of them because they can be a bit more sensitive, but they have been absolutely fine in quarantine in here, smashing through some algae and some plants. There are some baby bristlenoses that we've bred in here. You can sort of see one at the back there on the filter. This is the mum here. Some of them might go in, I don't know yet, I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, that is the majority of the algae eaters, some catfish. I have also got some very rare corydoras in here that I'm not too sure whether to put in. They're actually here in that plant. I've got 2 of them. Now, well, hang on, let me tell you about them. So that black blob of a corydoras that you can sort of see in the plant just there is a bit of a weird one. I was walking around my old shop and a customer had brought some corydoras in to rehome, just a couple of them. And I was looking at them, and I love corydoras, and I've, you know, not researched them, but I've always loved looking through corydoras books, so I've got a lot of them, and I've flicked through them for years, and I could not picture or place that corydoras anywhere. I was like, well, it's got this, and it's got this, and it's got spots, and it's got a bit of a stripe, and I could not work it out. I've never seen one before. Then I realised it's got pinky orange pectoral fins, which isn't very common in corydoras. Most of the time it's sturbers that have that. And I'm like, well, that makes no sense, because there's not many other corydoras that have got that pattern. Anyway, then it sort of dawned on me that I'm like, I think this might be a crossbreed. I think this is actually a crossbreed. And so I've sent it to a few friends now, and I've sent it to a few other fish keepers that know corydoras, and a lot of people are under the same impression that they think it's a panda cross sturber. I've never seen it before, I've never heard of it before, I'm not even sure if it's possible. Customers brought 2 of them in. I assume they might have bred in her tank or their tank. I don't know if it was a woman or a bloke, but yeah, weird. There's 2 of them in here. The only reason I got them is because I didn't want them really falling into someone else's hands where they might then possibly breed again, and then you might have more weird babies coming out. And, you know, it's nice to keep corydoras strains pure. So that's why I've got these 2 in here. I might catch them out and put them into this main tank. I think I probably will, just because then they've got a home forever and they're not on their own in here. Anyway, I'm going to catch all these fish out. I'm going to get them into a bucket, because this is going to take me probably half an hour or so, and no one needs to see a really long, drawn-out montage of me catching fish badly. So, yeah, I'll bring you back in 2 minutes, or no, 10 seconds, which will be probably 30 minutes for me, and you can see what I've caught out. So that is all the fish caught out. We have got the flying foxes, or the cross net, not what are they called? Fishnet, that's the ones. Giant ottos, normal ottos, and the corydoras. But I haven't included the weird corydoras. So I do think it's best if the 2 weird corydoras stay in this tank. I can see them at the back now hovering about, and I have made a bit of a mess of this tank because I had to remove all the plants to get all of the Otocinclus out from in amongst the leaves. But I think it's best if those 2 stay in here, just because if I do get corydoras eggs in the main tank, then I can't be sure that they're not a crossbreed. It's very rare. I've never seen this fish before in my life anyway, and a few people I've sent it to haven't seen it before. So yeah, I think it's best to keep them away from the main group, because I just don't want any more crossbreeds happen. It's very unlikely that a crossbreed would then breed with a pure and blah blah blah, but it's just safer, I think. So they're going to stay in here. I've just noticed another one of those stupid Colombian ram's horn snails that's obviously been in here decimating my plant storage area as well. This is where I quarantined the Colombian ram's horns and then realised my mistake. But anyway, right, let's get these guys in and we'll get them drip acclimatized to the main tank. And I reckon by the end of this video, we should be able to net out all of the tetras as well and get them in, but we'll give these a few days to settle down first. Now, I have dimmed down the lights on the Highline just to be sure that they're going to have a peaceful introduction, and we are just going to use a simple drip line to acclimatise them. Now, if you haven't used a drip line before, you pop one end of a piece of air line inside the aquarium, and then the other end goes down inside the bucket, and you didn't see me do this. Get the water flowing, tie a knot into it, and then you can allow it to drip water into your bucket, and that will slowly bring everything up in there, pH, temperature, everything like that. Be sure that your room's not too cold, and obviously they're going to cool down over the time you're acclimatizing. Just keep an eye on that. But these are coming obviously from in there that is the same temperature as in here, so we can allow them to settle for probably 45 minutes. Now, I know some of you will be really sad that I'm acclimatizing via the drip line method, so just for you, we'll do 1 flamingo cup of water to get the acclimatization started. So that's the nice thing with drip method, is I don't have to now do anything for the next 45 minutes other than checking that they're not getting too cold and that the water is slowly filling up and I'm not flooding my floor. So I'm going to leave them for 45 minutes and I'll bring you all back when we can actually net them in and get them in the tank. So the fish have had roughly about 45 minutes, nearly an hour now. I've emptied the bucket once and we filled up a little bit more. So we are ready to pour all that water down the front of my cabinet because I didn't think about what I was doing. I'll dry that up, but we are ready to get these fish in here. The first fish in my dream tank. And then nearly just dropped the light unit in being silly. Right, let's get these in. Now, interestingly, actually, the giant ottos that are in here aren't actually ottos at all. They're actually from a completely different genus. I'm guessing they're just called giant ottos because they sort of look like a giant otto. Let's get a few in there and we'll get them chucked in this tank. Sorry, placed in this tank. No chucking involved when dealing with fish. Now, in the first net, I have got a couple of ottos, a few corydoras and a couple of the giant ottos. Oh my word, they look great already. And a ton of dog hair because I can't seem to do anything in this house without Dalmatian hair being involved. And they've gone. Oh no, they're here, that's fine. Right, next net. Oh, there's so much food in there for them. And then another net with some corydoras and another giant otto. And then last but not least, the rest of the ottos. One more corydoras and the little flying foxes. So we are going to leave this tank for a few days to settle down, make sure the algae eaters and all the catfish settle in well, which, I'll be honest, I've been testing the water regularly. Obviously, I've put some mature media into the filter. We've been using all the right chemicals, so there's no real reason that a tank of this size with that fewer fish should really have any problems. But we'll give it a few days, let them all settle in. I can already see them dotting about and eating some of the algae and finding their way around the tank. And then what I'll do is in the next 5 seconds, I'll bring you all back and we'll add all of those tetras and possibly the cichlids that are out there. I'll see how I feel on that, but yeah, I think we probably will. So, well, see you in a second. So we are back after about a week of letting the cleanup crew, well, give me a bit of a hand with my Oasi Highline 600, and they have done a fantastic job. That small amount of algae eaters have made a huge, huge difference. So between the giant ottos, the normal ottos, the corydoras, and what else did I say in here? Oh, the fishnet flying foxes, they have done a great job of the rocks, of the wood, everything like that. Now, the glass is still a little bit murky and a little bit... not murky, that's the wrong word. It's got a little bit of algae on it because, well, they're not cleaning this off fully because this is a big pane of glass. So we'll give it a wipe over quickly and then we can go and get our tetras out of the quarantine tank to get in here. But yeah, they've done great. The rocks are clean, the wood's mostly clean. The only problem is now is there's more fish poo lurking around in the wood, but we can do a few little water changes and get that out. And once the tetras are in there, they'll start stirring it up and actually moving it around. And oh, actually, I moved the spray bar as well. So as you can probably see, having the additional skimmer has actually cleared up the surface really nicely. And planted tanks always suffer with that horrible sort of film over the surface. So that has worked a treat. And like I say, I moved the spray bar back down to this end. Sorry for the noise. And surprisingly, it works better than what it was doing at the back. So having it how it was designed works better than what I'd done. What a surprise, really. You know, I probably should read and listen to the instructions a little bit more. Now, one thing I did remember that I didn't actually deal with in that last video was the filter. And that is because I was running some of the carbon impregnated sponges in the pre-filter to try and help me get rid of, well, those tannins from the wood. And obviously they've helped really, really well, but the time has come to swap them back over for some normal sponges, I think. Now, that is one of the things I like about the Biomaster thermos. Obviously, one is that the heater is obviously hidden inside the filter. I haven't labelled these plugs yet, stupidly, as well, and I keep turning off the lights instead of the filter, so I should really label them all. Now, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, obviously, the heater is hidden inside the filter, and I do really like that. But the other thing I do really enjoy is that if you've got a second set of the pre-filter sponges, so I've got a couple of sets, these ones being the like really porous ones so they don't block up that quickly, you can literally turn the filter off, close the water off, that would help, Matthew, do that first, take your pre-filter out, swap the sponges over quickly and get it running again, and then you can have that spare set of sponges to keep back for the next time. Obviously these are carbon ones, so these have been running nearly a couple of months now, maybe a month, so there might be a little bit of life left in them, but not very much. So inside here we should be able to see, there they are, our carbon sponges. So we'll swap them for these ones. Oh, hang on, I haven't got them out the bag yet. And then we'll be ready to go again. I'll probably empty the water out of there, but you know, if you had a couple of sets of these standard sponges, you'd be well away. A pit stop, 5-minute pit stop to clean your pre-filter out on your tank, and then you've got all the time in the world to clean the rest of the sponges out. So with all the sponges slotted back on our pre-filter, that one can go back in there. Make sure the tabs are around the right way. That one gets locked back into there. Yep, that's all we're cleaning today because I've cleaned the big sponges out the other week. That one can go around, push it back in on our special slidey drawer, turn it on, and away we go. We're done. And excuse the cables because I haven't sorted all of them out, but I haven't done the cables and I haven't done the labelling on this tank yet, but it looks pretty and I'm getting fish in it, so that's all that I need to worry about. Now, as normal with all my tanks, I have been testing the water fairly regularly, so everything is absolutely spot on in here. With that few algae eaters going in here, and obviously I've not been feeding them all that much, maybe an algae wafer every other day, or maybe a couple of algae wafers every other day, but the waste load or the bio load is very, very low in here. So everything is testing up absolutely fine. So we can go and start catching out our tetras, and I also think we're probably going to end up putting our cichlids in here as well. Not big cichlids like people think of, but some nice little cichlids that I've got in quarantine already. So we've got a nice group of tetras in here. We've got whitefin bentoses, or candy cane tetras as they call them in the US, black phantoms, glowlight tetras, lemon tetras. Yeah, that's the 4. So we've got proper classic aquarium tetras to go in there, which is what I sort of wanted this tank to be at the start. I wanted those like proper tetras that have been in the hobby for a long time. I guess the whitefins have not been around as long, and I couldn't get rosies or x-rays at the time, which is the ones I wanted. But anyway, we need to catch all of them out. There's quite a few of them, and they are going to be a bit of a nightmare. The other thing I want to put in there is my 4 keyhole cichlids that have been in here for a while now. There is one other fish in here, which is an albino pair of crebensis and a golden pair, no, blue-eyed golden pair of bristlenoses, but they'll be staying in here because both of them are for future breeding projects. Once we clear these guys out, hopefully that will give them a bit of space to spawn. We've already had the bristlenoses breeding and we've got babies of them, but yeah, I do really want to get those cribs breeding. So let's catch them out, let's do some netting. I'm not going to bring you along with me because there'll probably be some very choice words, and yeah, everything's going to get very wet. So right, I'll bring you back in a second when I've got all of these fish, barring a few, in a bucket. So I'm not even halfway through catching these, and I stupidly thought I could do it with all the plants in there. And I was like, oh, I've caught quite a lot of them, that's fine. There's more than enough in the bucket. I took all the plants out, and there's like another 30 in here. And I can tell you now, Glowlight tetras, easy to catch. Black phantoms, fairly easy. Lemon tetras and candy cane or white fins are the worst. Lemon tetras are definitely faster than all the others, but I'm getting there. I'll be with you in about 5 seconds. After what seemed the longest time and definitely a few select words, we have all of the tetras and the 4 keyhole cichlids. So I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did last time, which was run a drip line in here. Now I filled this drip line with water rather than sucking on the end of it to get the water flowing. So that made life a lot easier. Let's just tighten that down so it's a drip rather than a constant trickle. And then we can leave these little guys for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, let them acclimatise. Why is that not tightening up? This is why you use a proper one with a valve on it, because it's way easier than tying a knot. There we go. I need a longer drip line. Maybe I'll just stand here for the 45 minutes, but I'll bring you back once they've all acclimatised and they're used to the water that's in there. So we are done with the acclimatisation. They've had roughly about an hour now, and I flooded the floor once because I wasn't paying attention to my drip line. Always buy a long enough drip line for the tank you're dripping into, because that just makes sense. But anyway, let's get these netted out and let's get them into the tank. Now I'm going to have to do this in a few scoops because I don't think we'll get everyone in one go, and I don't want it to be too crammed in the net, but we have turned this lighting down to about 10%. This is, well, fairly dull, even though the camera will have adjusted itself to sort of compensate for the lack of lighting. This is actually running really, really low. So once these have settled in a minute, I'll ramp the lighting up, and the colours on the fish looks amazing when the lights are fully ramped up. So rather than putting them all in together, I don't want them to damage themselves, so trying to do them bit by bit is probably the safest option. Oh my word, they look so good. I don't think I've actually caught a keyhole cichlid yet. It's just been tetras, lemons, black phantoms, glowlights. None of them seem any more difficult in the bucket to catch, but yeah, I've not seen any keyholes come out yet. I can actually see why now. The keyholes are sticking to the outer edge of the bucket, whereas the tetras are all swimming all over the place. There we go, a little bit of spare sand and some plant debris. Probably didn't want to put that in, but the filter's big enough to deal with it. I don't know how I managed to do it so that the keyholes were the last fish out, but that is everyone out of the bucket. And they are gone. The keyholes have vanished. All right, let's give them sort of half an hour or so. Everyone should come back out. They're already looking settled in and quite colourful, but you don't get a real impression until they've actually settled down and they're swimming around the whole tank. So yeah, I'll bring you back in 5 seconds, which will be, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. So it is actually the next day. We gave them overnight to settle down, and they have settled really, really well. The tetras, the keyholes, all the algitas were already settled, but everything looks really good. Now you might notice that the tank looks a tiny bit cloudy, and that is fairly normal for when you're first getting fish in there, but it is well worth looking out for. It's important actually for me not to clear this. I could do a big water change, I could run extra filters on here really quickly so that it clears the water, and then for filming this it is completely clear. But it's actually important for me to talk about this because this can be what's called a bacterial bloom when the tank goes a little bit milky and you're first putting fish in. And that's generally an increase in fish waste. In your aquarium, the bacteria has to work really, really quickly to try and break down that fish waste, and you end up with this milky sort of look. Now you do have to be careful because obviously if the fish waste is getting into higher levels, you do have to be careful because that could cause a problem with your fish. But this cloudiness isn't actually caused by that. This is actually caused by the keyhole cichlids digging and moving some stuff around and looking like they're already sort of trying to find a site to spawn, which is annoying and also quite good in the same sense. But with the biomass thermo filter on this tank, this cloudiness will clear in no time. Well, as long as the keyholes stop digging in the sand that I didn't actually wash out. But we will see. I think it will be okay. We'll get there eventually. It will just might take a little bit of time. But if you do suffer with cloudy water like this at home, it's well worth testing your water because it could be an ammonia spike. It could be a nitrite spike. You know, it's not that cloudy, to be honest. It's just a bit of digging. But at home, if you do get an ammonia or nitrite spike, it could end up causing problems with your fish. And if you find that you're getting a spike, getting some water changes done, getting some good bacteria in there, trying to get some, well, get that ammonia removed essentially, or nitrite, is going to be your best port of call, because otherwise it could cause major issues with your fish. But we are all good in here. I have tested up the water. There's no ammonia, there's no nitrite, so I know it's those keyholes that are down behind that rock digging and stirring things up. So I'll just need to give them a little bit of time to cleanse it. But really, I need your help now. So if you stayed to this point of the video, thank you very much. But I need your help. I want some bigger fish for this tank. I'm thinking pearl gouramis, but not 100% sure. I've got a really nice group of Rio Atea angels in the tropical cichlid pond in the garage. They could go in here without too much issue, because most of the tetras I've chosen are bigger, broader bodied tetras and aren't mouth sized. But I'm also quite liking the idea of maybe some bigger rainbow fish, maybe Bozeman's rainbows, or even denison barbs, or roseline barbs, or whatever name you want to give them. Denison barb is the one that I always knew it as. Oh, red line torpedo barb, that's another name for them. Maybe 6 or 8 of them, 6 or 8 Bozeman's rainbows, just to inhabit that top bit and give it a bit more, I don't know, decent sized fish in the top. And then I think a few more catfish. I do want corydoras, but I also quite like the idea of maybe getting something a bit different, maybe an African or an Asian catfish or loach. I want it to be peaceful, I don't want it to be nippy. Yeah, something in the bottom. So drop it down in the comments, because I do want to know. This tank has pretty much been voted for by all of you so far, so it'd be nice to get the next group of fish in here be chosen by you as well. So yeah, there we go, it is done. Shout out to the small group of algae eaters that we put in here. I actually didn't think they were going to be big or bold enough to get rid of all the algae, but these rocks are looking pristine compared to how we started this video. So yeah, shout out to the giant ottos, the little ottos, and the cross net flying foxes wherever they may have disappeared to. But everything looks good, everything looks cool. Let me know what you want to see in the next video, whether you want planting. Also, actually, should I remove that big plant because it annoys me, the Aponogeton? Let me know down in the comments what you want to see, what you want me to do, and yeah, the next stage of my dream Awazi Highline tank will be out hopefully in the next month or so. So yeah, if you're watching this later, look out for it. I'll, well, see you in the next one.